The human individual is equipped to learn and go on learning prodigiously from birth to death. And this is precisely what sets him or her apart from all other known forms of life. Man has at various times been defined as a building animal, a working animal, and a fighting animal. But all these definitions are incomplete and finally false. Man is a learning animal, and the essence of the species is encoded in that simple term. In this light, the mastery of skills that are not genetically programmed is the most characteristically human of all activities. The first and best of this learning involves no formal arrangement whatever. The world itself is school enough. And that's an excerpt from the book that we'll be reviewing today, Mastery by George Leonard. This was a book that was initially published in 1991. For some reason, I love old books because if they still last years and decades after they were written, it means the principles that are in them are timeless. As usual, I'll be reviewing this book in 3 parts, starting with part 1, what is mastery? It resists definition, yet can be instantly recognized. It comes in many varieties, yet follows certain unchanging laws. It brings rich rewards, yet is not really a goal or a destination, but rather a process, a journey. We call this journey mastery and tend to assume that it requires a special ticket available only to those born with exceptional abilities. But that obviously isn't true. The master's journey can begin whenever you decide to learn any new skill. How to touch type, how to play an instrument, how to become a lawyer, how to cook, whatever. To take the master's journey, you have to practice diligently, striving to hone your skills to attain new levels of competence. But while doing so, and this fact is very important, you also have to be willing to spend most of your time on a plateau, to keep practicing even when you seem to be getting nowhere. Sometimes you might see me looking this way, and that's because I'm reading from the notes and highlights that I made while I was reading the book. So this is what the mastery curve looks like. Learning any new skill involves relatively brief spurts of progress, each of which is followed by a slight decline to a plateau, somewhat higher in most cases than that which preceded it. It's not a linear trend that just goes up. There's progress, a plateau, progress, a plateau, and that's how it goes. But why does learning take place in spurts? I hope I pronounced that right. Spurts. Carl Bribram, a professor of neuroscience at Stanford University, he explained it this way. When you start to learn a new skill, you do have to think about it. And you have to make an effort to replace old patterns of sensing, movement, and cognition with new. To put it in another way, the cognitive and effort systems click into the habitual system, those are your habits, and reprogram it. When the job is done, both systems withdraw. That's the cognitive and effort systems. Then you don't have to stop and think about, say, the right grip every time you hold your racket. So how do we best move towards mastery? Put it simply, you practice diligently, but you practice primarily for the sake of practice itself. Now this reminded me of something that Michael Jordan, the greatest athlete that's ever lived, said. I've always liked practice and I hate to miss it. It's like taking a math class. When you miss that one day, you feel like you've missed a lot. You take extra work to make up for that one day. I have always been a practice player. I believe in it. Now I want us to meet 3 different personas of people that are learning a new skill. And as you're unpacking them, try to look out for which one best describes you. So first, let's meet the dabbler. The dabbler approaches each new sport, career opportunity, or relationship with enormous enthusiasm. He or she loves the rituals involved in getting started, the spiffy equipment, the lingo, and the shine of newness. When he makes his first spurt of progress in a new sport, for example, the dabbler is overjoyed. He demonstrates his form to family, friends, and even people he meets on the street, strangers. He can't wait for the next lesson. The fall off from his high peak comes as a shock. The plateau that follows is unacceptable, if not incomprehensible. His enthusiasm quickly wanes. He starts missing lessons. His mind fills up with rationalizations. Maybe this really isn't the right spot for me. He tells everyone that he just doesn't fulfill his unique needs. Starting another sport gives the dabbler a chance to replay the scenario of starting up. Maybe he'll make it to the second plateau this time. Maybe not. Then he's on to something else. Next, we have the obsessive. Now, this is the way his own graph of learning a new skill looks like. The obsessive is the bottom line type of person, not one to settle for second best. He or she knows results are what counts. And it doesn't matter how you get them, just so you get them fast. In fact, he wants to get the stroke just right during the very first lesson. He stays after class talking to the instructor. He asks what books and tapes can he buy to help him make progress faster. He likes speed. The obsessive starts out by making robust progress. His first spurt is just what he expected. But when he inevitably regresses and finds himself on a plateau, he simply won't accept it. No. He redoubles his effort. He pushes himself mercilessly. He refuses to accept his bosses and colleagues' counsel of moderation. He works all night at the office. He's tempted to take shortcuts for the sake of quick results. Somehow, in whatever he's doing, the obsessive manages for a while to keep making brief spurts of upward progress, followed by a sharp decline, a jagged ride towards a sure fall. When the fall occurs, the obsessive is likely to get hurt, and this is the sad part, and so are his friends, colleagues, stockholders, and lovers. Next, let's meet the hacker. This is what his own graph of growth looks like. The hacker has a different attitude. After sort of getting the hang of a thing, he or she is willing to stay on the plateau indefinitely. He doesn't mind skipping stages essential to the development of mastery if he can just go out and hack around with fellow hackers. He's the physician or teacher who doesn't bother going for professional meetings. What's my business with training? The tennis player who develops a strong forehand and figures he can make do with a ragged backhand. At work, he does only enough to get by. He leaves on time or early. He takes every break. Every break that's available, he takes it. He talks instead of doing his job and wonders why he doesn't get promoted. Now let me know in the comment section which of these three best describes the way you previously approached learning a new skill. Because I know that after this video, you're now going to start approaching it with the master's journey. Now the one that best describes me is the obsessive. Usually whenever I'm learning a new skill, anyone that sees me on the first day is usually so impressed. But I hate the plateau. And from this book, I've learned that to be on the master's journey, I have to love the plateau and learn to love practice. Now that we know what mastery is about, we are ready for part 2, the 5 master keys to mastery. Key number 1 is instruction. There are some skills you can learn on your own and some you can try to learn. But if you intend to take the journey of mastery, the best thing you can do is to arrange for first-rate instruction. Now we're going to talk about what that means. Instruction comes in many forms. For mastering more skills, there is nothing better than being in the hands of a master teacher. That's like a coach. Either one-on-one or in a small group. But there are also books, films, tapes, computer learning programs, computerized simulators, group instruction, the classroom, knowledgeable friends, counselors, business associates, YouTube channels, and even the streets. Still, the individual teacher or coach can serve as a standard for all forms of instruction. It gives so much emphasis on picking a very competent teacher. The search for good instruction starts with looking at credentials and lineage. Who's your teacher's teacher? Who was that teacher's teacher? To see the teacher clearly, look at the students. There is work of art. If at all possible, attend an instructional session before choosing your teacher. Focus your attention on the students, even more on the interaction. Does the instructor proceed through praise or through damnation? If you read the book, you'll see that the author himself was an Aikido teacher and he used that example a lot in the book. He also used the skill of learning tennis as an example in the book. Now, how about other modes of instruction? In most cases, audio and video tapes have only limited effectiveness. Remember that this book was written in 1991. Learning eventually involves interaction between the learner and the learning environment. With tapes, there's no real interaction at all. If you're watching a video, for instance, on how to learn to hit a tennis forehand, the instructor in that video can't get feedback from you to know how you're doing it, what you're getting wrong. The person can't give you feedback. That's why it's a good habit if you're going to learn on your own to record yourself. So you have the video of your instructor, probably like a YouTube video that you're watching, and then you also have your own video that you recorded yourself while you were doing it, side by side to contrast, so that you can see, okay, this is where I'm getting it wrong, this is where I'm getting it right, this is where I have to improve. Key number 2, my favorite, practice. The usage of the word practice as a verb is clear to all of us. You practice your trumpets, your dance routine, your multiplication tables, your combat mission, whatever. To practice in this sense implies something separate from the rest of you. You practice in order to learn a skill, in order to improve yourself, to get ahead, to achieve goals, to make money. Yeah, so there's like an end result attached to the practice. It's a means to an end. But for one who is on a master's journey, the word is best conceived as a noun. So it's not something you do, it's something you have, it's something that you are. In this sense, the word is akin to the Chinese word tao and the Japanese word do, both of which mean literally road or path. Practice is the path upon which you travel. A practice as a noun can be anything you practice on a regular basis as an integral part of your life. So it's not something apart from you, it's something that is integral. Not in order to gain something else, but for his own sake. Ultimately, the master and the master's path are one. And if the traveler is fortunate, see what it defines as fortunate. That is, if the path is complex and profound enough, the destination is 2 miles further away for every mile that he or she travels. Wow. Do I want to be fortunate? Says there's another secret. The people we know as masters don't devote themselves to their particular skill just to get better at it. The truth is, they love to practice. And because of this, they do get better. And then to complete the circle, the better they get, the more they enjoy performing the basic moves over and over again. So that's why it has to be something you love and you're really interested in. Not something you're trying to do for your parents or to show off to your friends. Now, as Paul Graham said in one of his essays, he said it's essential to work on something you're deeply interested in. Interest will drive you to work harder than mere diligence ever could. I want to be diligent, I want to be diligent, I want to be diligent. A shortcut to being disciplined to focus on your goals is being interested in it. There's an old martial arts saying that goes, the master is one who stays on the mat 5 minutes longer every day than anybody else. To practice regularly, even when you seem to be getting nowhere, might at first seem onerous. But the day eventually comes when practicing becomes a treasured part of your life. You settle into it as if in your favorite easy chair, unaware of time and the turbulence of the world. It will still be there for you tomorrow. It will never go away. The prospective student asked him, how long will it take me to master Aikido? And the only respectable response is, how long do you expect to live? Key number 3, surrender. The courage of a master is measured by his or her willingness to surrender. This means surrendering to your teacher and to the demands of your discipline. Every discipline has demands. It also means surrendering to your own hard-won proficiency from time to time in order to reach a higher or different level of proficiency. So sometimes what you know is even an opposition for the next level. The early stages of any significant new learning invokes the spirit of the fool. It's almost inevitable that you feel clumsy, that you take literal or figurative platforms. There's no way around it. The beginner who stands on his or her own dignity becomes rigid, armored. The learning can't get through. This doesn't mean you should surrender your own physical and moral center or passively accept teachings that will be bad for you. No. But you've already checked out your instructor. Remember the first key. Now's the time for a certain suspension of disbelief. Skepticism to new ideas is normal in human nature. It's a conscious effort that you have to make to drop this disbelief since you vetted the instructor to be someone that is proficient. So your teacher asks you to begin by putting your finger on your nose and standing on one foot. Unless there's some compelling reasons to the contrary, just surrender. Give it a try. Surrendering to your teacher and to the fundamentals of the art are only the beginning. There are times in almost every master's journey when it becomes necessary to give up some hard-won competence in order to advance to the next stage. This is especially true when you're stuck at a familiar and comfortable skill level. Now this brings to mind the parable of the cup and the cart. There's a cart of milk on the table within your reach, but you're holding a cup of milk in your hand and you're afraid to let go of the cup in order to get the cart. You have to let go of one to get the other. Perhaps the best you can hope for on the master's journey, whether your art is management or marriage, badminton or ballet, is to cultivate the mind and the heart of the beginning at every stage along the way. For the master, surrender means there are no experts, there are only learners. As Zen monk Shunryu Suzuki said, in a beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Key number 4 is intentionality. And another name for this is mental imaging. He says it's very essential on the master's journey. So several people have attributed to the power of visualization. For example, Jack Nicklaus, a golfer, he said he never hits a shot without first clearly visualizing the ball's perfect flight and triumphant destination. He even said a perfect shot is 50% visualization, 40% setup, and only 10% swing. Bear in mind that at this point his swings were nearly perfect. Arnold Schwarzenegger also said something similar. He said pumping a weight one time with full consciousness is worth 10 without mental awareness. So what's the role of intentionality here? It's certainly involved in the creation of the structure as an idea. It's also involved in the transformation of that structure from one of its forms to another. This sort of transformation, in fact, is what the process of mastery is all about. So you have the structure as an idea, the structure of you playing that thing perfectly, you performing that skill masterfully, and you now want to transform it from that idea into the physical thing that you're doing. So he says that sometimes he has his students hold the vision or the feeling of a certain truth in their mind and then practice it over and over for an hour or more until they are drenched with sweat and wiped clean of their previous thoughts or feelings about the truth. And Schwarzenegger also said, all I know is that the first step is to create the vision. Because when you see the vision there, the beautiful vision, that creates the want power. For example, my wanting to be Mr. Universe came about because I saw myself so clearly being up there on the stage and winning. Intentionality fuels the master's journey. Every master is a master of vision. Finally, key number 5, the edge. I love the way he starts this section. Now we come, as we must, in anything of real consequence, to a seeming contradiction, a paradox. Almost without exception, those we know as masters are dedicated to the fundamentals of their calling. They are zealots of practice, connoisseurs of the small incremental step. At the same time, and here's the paradox, these people, these masters, are precisely the ones who are likely to challenge previous limits, to take risk for the sake of higher performance, and even to become obsessive at times in that pursuit. Clearly for them, the key is not either or, it's both and. So both the fundamentals and breaking new records. The trick here is not only to test the edges of the envelope, but also to walk the fine line between endless goalless practice and those alluring goals that appear along the way. So now you're hyped up, you know what a master is, you know your previous approach to learning skills and where you've been getting you wrong, you know the 5 keys to mastery, but all these things won't work if you don't understand part 3, why resolutions don't work and what to do about it. So good news, you resolve to make a change for the better in your life. Now, it's a significant change, and so you're developing a regular practice around it. Let's say it's you want to get healthy, you want to get fit, you start going to the gym. So your practice now is going to the gym 3 times a week. You tell your friends about it, you put your resolution in writing, you start going. Monday you were there, Wednesday you were there, week 1 goes, week 2 goes, you're going to the gym, you're loving it, you're happy about it, your friends are also happy, your life is getting better, and then you backslide. But why? Are you some kind of person that does not have willpower? Not necessarily. Backsliding is a universal experience. Every one of us resists significant change, no matter whether it's for the worse or for the better. Our body, brain, and behavior have a built-in tendency to stay within rather narrow limits and to snap back when changed. And it's a very good thing to do, because think about it, if your body temperature moved up or down 10%, you'll be in big trouble. The same thing with your blood sugar level. Now, this balance of equilibrium is what is called homeostasis. It characterizes all self-regulating systems, from a bacterium to a frog to a human individual to a family to an organization to an entire culture, It applies to all psychological states and behavior, as well as physical functioning. Homeostasis in social groups brings additional feedback loops into play. Families stay stable by means of instructions, exhortations, punishments, privileges, gifts, favors, signs of approval, and affection. And even by means of extremely subtle body languages and facial expression. Like there's a face that your mom will give you and immediately you get the message. Homeostasis doesn't distinguish between what you would call change for the better and change for the worse. It resists every form of change. Now, an understanding of homeostasis is very important on our path to mastery so that we don't see ourselves sliding back to familiar patterns of being a dabbler, an obsessive, or a hacker. Now, there are 5 guidelines that he gives that helps us to make any form of change. Number 1, be aware of the way homeostasis works. This might be the most important guideline of all. Expect resistance and backlash. Expect it. Realize that when the alarm bells start ringing, it doesn't mean you're sick or you're crazy or you're lazy or that you've made a bad decision to embark on this journey. In fact, you might take these signals as an indication that your life is definitely changing, which is just what you wanted. Of course, it might be that you have started something that's not right for you. Only you can decide that. But in any case, don't panic. Don't give up on the first sign of trouble. You might also experience resistance from family, from your friends, and your co-workers because everything is supposed to be in equilibrium. Number 2, be willing to negotiate with your resistance to change. So what should you do when you run into resistance? When the red lights flash and the alarm bells start ringing? Well, don't back off and don't bull your way through either. Negotiation is the ticket to successful long-term change in everything, from increasing your running speed to transforming your organization. The long-distance runner working for a faster run time on a measured course negotiates with homeostasis by using pain, not as an adversary, but as the best possible guide to performance. The fine art of playing the edge in this case involves the willingness to take 1 step back for every 2 steps forward and vice versa. It also demands a determination to keep pushing, but not without awareness. Now, me personally, I see this every day. I notice I'm only able to do deep focused work for 4 to 5 hours at a time. Although I might want to do like 8 or 9, after 4 to 5 hours, I have to take a power nap. Now, I learned the power nap from Ohalete, and it's just a 20-minute nap. So I set my timer for 25 or 30 minutes, giving some buffer for me to sleep off. And then by the time I wake up, it's as if I have a second day within that day and I can now work for the 4 to 5 hours. So initially I wanted to blast through, oh no, I want to work. Let's just work for the 6, 7, 8 hours. But I noticed that the best I could do if I forced myself was 6 hours and I would have intense headache. So I had to learn how to negotiate. Okay, 4 hours, I take a power nap and then I get another 4 hours to work. Number 3, develop a support system. You can do it alone, yeah. But it helps a great deal to have other people with whom you can share the joys and the perils of the change you're making. The best support system will involve people who have gone through or are going through a similar process. People who can tell their own stories of change and listen to yours. People who will brace you up when you start to backslide and encourage you when you don't. The path of mastery, fortunately, almost always fosters social groupings. And what if your quest for mastery is a lonely one? What if you find no fellow voyagers on that particular path? At the least, you can let the people close to you know what you're doing and ask for their support. Number 4, follow a regular practice. People embarking on any type of change can gain stability and comfort through practicing some worthwhile activity on a more or less regular basis. Not so much for the sake of achieving an external goal, as simply for its own sake. A traveler on the path of mastery is again fortunate. For practice in this sense is the foundation of the path itself, just like we've said earlier. The circumstances are particularly happy in case you've already established a regular practice in something else before facing the challenge and change of beginning a new one. Practice is a habit, and any regular practice provides a sort of underlying homeostasis, a stable base during the instability of change. So that's why it's good when you want to add a new habit to stack it beside another habit that you already have. Finally, number 5, dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. We tend to forget that learning is much more than book learning. To learn is to change. Education, whether it involves book, body, or behavior, is a process that changes the learner. It doesn't have to end at college graduation or at 40 years or 60 or 80. And the best learning of all involves learning how to learn, that is, to change. The lifelong learner is essentially one who has learned to deal with homeostasis, simply because he or she is doing it all the time. And that's where I'll leave you for today. Very great book. I hope I've convinced you enough to read. You can get it using the link in the description below. And if you use that link, you'll also be supporting this channel as well. Give this video a like if you really enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more book reviews. Thank you so much for watching. And then I'll see you in the next book.